This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. The Middle Ground Mike is fighting for truth and unity. Subscribe now or support us today. Links are in the notes. Stand with us.
Is America too divided to fix? Tonight I sit down with the Agitators, and we're diving straight into woke culture, faith, ICE, and the my way or no way mindset tearing this country apart. This is the Middle Ground Mike.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Middle Ground Mike. I got some great guests here from the the Agitators. That's how you say your show, correct? I got Jason, and you know what, man, I'm not sure about. I told you I'm bad with names. How you pronounce your name again?
So I'm L. Milliner.
Milliner. Okay, I'm terrible with names. Listen, I always ask people to pronounce them, but
Hey,
you know these
all
guys.
good, man. I'm bad with names too. I remember faces, not names.
Yes, these guys, you know, they're good, God-fearing Christian men. They're reasonable men. You know, check their stuff out there. You know, they're pretty good size there on YouTube. I encourage you guys to check it out because reasonable is anybody who listens to the show knows I'm about reasonable, balanced conversations. Like, you know, remember we all breathe the same air. You know, walk on the same dirt. But you know, let's dig into it a little bit, y'all. You know, some of that national stuff that's kind of that's gone down recently, especially with, let's kind of start off with the my way or no way mentality. You know, that has kind of seemed to really overtake the country, right? And I think in principle, both sides are maybe not as much as super far left. So I don't want to like go that direction, but a lot of sides, you know, they have in some certain points, they have some valid things. Hey, you know, this is how I feel, but like, how do we, you know, from your, because you guys are from down south, I'm from north. How do we fix this? How do we fix the my way or no way?
To be honest, people have this idea about politics where politics are negative, they're bad, they're something that we shouldn't engage in. Even Christians believe this. It's just something like they want to shy away from. But what they don't understand is that politics is something that should bring people together to pass laws, to create policies and pass policies and things that make sense for the majority of Americans, right? And what's happened over the years, I think I will probably say, to be honest, for me, from my perspective, the Obama administration is kind of where the politics became very, very polarized, where you see general American population staying in that same mentality of we're doing things common sense ways, right? Like no same sex marriage. You know, people know what a man is, they know what a woman is. You can't flip flop your gender. People, this was understood on both sides of the aisle, right?
Yeah,
At that, to my 2008, 2010, 12, that's everybody was in agreement. During Obama's administration, when he passed the executive order to allow same sex marriage, what that did is it opened the door for this polarization of we're the Democrats, we're going way left, right? We're leaving everybody else behind. So that's what I saw looking back on it. That's what I saw happen. So it created this whole idea of it's either my way or no way, right?
yeah,
And here we are, you know, 15 years later, 16 years later, from that situation with the whole same sex marriage thing, and now you got kids 3, 4 years old being raised to switch their gender from day to day, from minute to minute. Insanity. So it's kind of, you know, and then as a for me as a Christian believer, as a Christ believer, I understand that there's truth, right? It's not my truth, it's not your truth, right? It's the truth. And the truth is we have to make sure we're doing things in alignment with God. And if it's not in alignment with God, then it's, you know, it's not for us to do. So it's really his way or no way. So I think even saying that in the public, people will take that and say, well, that's extreme, right? That's
right.
extreme now. A decade and a half ago, that wouldn't be extreme to say.
No,
But now it's extreme to say that because now I'm drawing a line in the sand, and now people are saying, "Oh, he's overstepping his boundaries and trying to make me conform to what he believes." No, I'm just saying for me and my family or me and people who agree with me, we understand common sense tells us to live this way.
Right.
Y'all are doing something totally different. So it's that's my opinion about kinda where how we got so polarized to the 2 different sides. It really started with Obama,
Yeah.
if you know, in my opinion. What about you, Jason?
With that, I think it definitely started with President Obama. Just like Al Milner just said, having the line drawn in the sand. We're conservative Christian men. So, like I was saying earlier, as a Christ follower, that's my foundation. That's what I believe in first and foremost. From that Christian belief comes my conservative values. From my conservative values is why I vote Republican. It really is just like Elle said, I mean, you look at this and you want to be aligned with God's will. And the law that we follow is directly from God. So from that, it's logical, it's reasonable, and it's just common sense. With Barack Obama, with the same-sex marriages, with the lighting up the house, the rainbow colors, um, trying to bring homosexuality to the continent of Africa. He went over there trying to promote that stuff. Just stuff that just doesn't align with us as Christian conservative men. The whole thing with abortion now, and you see when you give the enemy an inch, they will take a mile. Now with Joe Biden and what he did with the kids can pick their gender now. What's the point in having a celebration of the birth and knowing the gender reveal if the kid doesn't even know what it is yet? See, that doesn't even make
Right.
sense. So with him and then now allowing the men to participate in the female sports, it's just total chaos, and it shows that that side doesn't like order. They don't like, things to be, set in stone. They want things to be confused. They want confusion. So a lot of times, you try to want to find middle ground with people, but you really can't because in our belief system, there's good versus evil. And a lot of the stuff that comes from that side is just pure evil. Our foundation, again, is, just Christian based. So we believe in the nuclear family. I have a shirt that says God, family, country. And that's how conservative, true Republicans are. We put God first, then our family, then our country. And
Yeah.
with them, I just noticed that it's a lot of chaos, a
Oh,
lot of
no.
anti-nuclear family, a lot of, hating your country, and it's just really weird.
Yeah, where I agree with you guys about definitely about where things went south with Obama and where things really like I think what kind of made the woke movement what it is, and I'm saying more in like if you want to call it like the bad parts, but what really got the whole nation, even people that are moderate Democrats, to go, this is too much for me because you got a lot of moderate Dems. There's some Democrat representatives in the U.S. House that have said, "I'm not coming back because this isn't my thing." Is when they started forcing it on kids. For the most part, most people are kind of like, if you're an adult, you live your life. It's between you and God. Like as long as you ain't pushing that on me and my family, I'm gravy. I like to use the example of, you guys are old enough to remember RuPaul. Nobody
Mhm.
cared about RuPaul. Kid Rock used to pirate RuPaul. Why? Because RuPaul was just like, I'm RuPaul. Like me or not, that's your problem. I'm going on about my day. So nobody cared because RuPaul wasn't saying, you have to do this, you have to do that, you got to treat me, you got to do, it was just like, hey, cool, cool, cool. We're not. I'm going to move on about my day. And I think once it became this, you've got to, like, you have to accept me. You've got to use this gender or you got to use this pronoun. And if you don't, I'm going to get you fired from your job. And once it started going that far, that's what really that was like the power keg moment. That's what really exploded it because it went from live your own life to now you're wanting to tell me how to live mine. And that's when a lot of that pushback happened, and the worst part is you get a lot of Democrats behind closed doors and they echo the same feelings. A lot of them won't say it in public, but they
Mm.
echo a lot of them echo that same feeling. A lot of the ones that obviously aren't super far, super far off the reservation. You got some of them out there like, John Fetterman. I mean, he's pretty much even said, he goes, stuff doesn't belong in schools. This does, that's not a place for it. And it's like, man, I mean, like, that's a starting point, and that should be the starting point. That should be the bare minimum. But it's for me, it's kind of gotten like this thing of, well, unless we have a whole school that's themed around it, and there's pronoun bathroom this or that, all of a sudden everybody's a bigot and this. No, whoa, like pause. If a parent wants to raise their child that way, I'm against it, but that's their business to do at home. But the teacher shouldn't be telling my kid how to think sexually. or what to identify as. That's not their place. So
Yeah.
that's mom and dad's place. And I think that, the breakdown of the nuclear family, like you were saying, Jay, or like, well, being pro nuclear family, but it's broken down is why you have the woke agenda. Because there's not that balance in the home. There's not that yin for yang. We all know kids, dad's not home. As soon as dad walks in the door, whoop, yes, sir. Even if you're not a mean dad, it's just that presence, right? It's just that presence. And not every guy deserves to be a father, right? Not every guy should even have a family because there's some pretty terrible men out there. But most men, I think, are good at heart and want to do the right thing. But them not
That's
being
right.
in the home, I think, like Charlie Kirk said all the time, he goes, men are incentivized to not be in the home. Women are incentivized to be single mothers. The whole tax system is set up to incentivize you to be that way because the poorer you are in certain situations, the easier it is to get by. And you'd rather do that, put baby daddy's address at his mom's house, but he still lives there. So y'all can get that. You know what I mean? Like we all know how that goes. I know how it works. And it's
That's
just
right.
like, but what that does is that destroys our kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the minute baby mama gets upset, you already know how that's gonna go. She's gonna, especially when you got a bitter mother of the children, you tend
Mhm.
to they can get, hell have no fury like a woman scorned. That is a very accurate statement. You know,
Yeah.
they will
Totally agree.
they'll ruin your day, but that's kind of where I guess I go with the woke thing. Like I'm against it being forced down everybody's throat. Like if you want to live your life, and as long as you're not sitting there when I walk out my front door going, you didn't say he them yesterday, man. If you want to do
Yeah.
that in your house behind closed doors, man, you do what you do. As long as you're
Yeah.
not like sacrificing babies or doing
You
anything
see,
weird,
well,
who cares?
you see the problem with that too, Joe. Like obviously I agree with you. We don't want that forced down our throat. But there's always something too with homosexuals and these trans people. What we do behind closed doors is what we do. Well, it does kind of affect us as well because now those people are raising kids, right? They adopt children, they raise kids, and they force their ideology. That's what life usually comes down to: ideology, what you think and believe in. So they're forcing their beliefs onto these kids. These kids are confused now, and through confusion, Satan loves confusion. So now you have this boy with two dads or two moms. Now he's confused. Probably, God knows what's happening to that child. And now us as humans in the public, we have to deal with what they raised. Now, as a parent, you want to put, constructive people in the world. Oh, with my children, your children, Elle's children, we want them to be productive. We want them to be, God fearing. We want them to, give back to the world, if you will. We don't want them to be around junk because you have to be careful what you produce out there and what you put out there. So a lot of the times, with these homosexuals and these trannies raising children, we see that, they're not raising their children correctly. And then now our children have to deal with that.
Let's take a quick break.
The Middle Ground Mike isn't just another podcast, it's a movement for unity, for truth, for a future beyond the left and the right. But movements don't grow without people willing to stand up. Subscribe now on Buzzsprout, fuel this mission directly on PayPal. Every subscription keeps the fire burning. The links are in the show notes. Be more than a listener, be part of the middle ground.
Yes. No, and I totally get that part. I mean, for me, like I'm just, like in principle and in my heart, I feel that way, right? And I feel I guess for me, I feel it's more of like more of a community. It's got to be like a community thing rather than a law, because when the community goes, "Hey, this is our standard," it's more accepted and it happens more often than when it comes from a place of the government. Because like when everybody around you wants to accept, like, yeah, we need mom and dad in the home, it's more likely to happen. Whereas, people don't accept I mean, now they're kind of like, oh, whatever. And well, you got what you got. And that's where I guess I come from with it, right? Like it's kind of like that community pressure hey, you guys need to, you guys, hey, you had the kids together. You got to do whatever it takes within reason. Try to make it work. You have an obligation to your kids. I mean, obviously that's, not every situation, every situation is different. And sometimes things shouldn't be that way. But I guess for me, that's where I come from with it. And, and it's hard. It's right because even if you don't, like, how do you find that balance of, right? You got like, I don't know, what do they make up like 2, 3% of the country that is on the woke left, like the super far woke left. I mean, the ones
Mhm.
where they probably just beat you up for walking by them. You can't reason with people that are that far jaded in life. I call it jaded in life because somewhere along the lines, life made them so pissed off
Mm,
They went crazy. And that's generally when you see it, right? Like a lot of kids move into the woke because they don't know what they are. They don't have a purpose. They're just like, it's kind of like be whatever you want to be. But yeah, they always told us to that as kids, but they also said, look, man, you got to be real. You're probably not going to be president. You can aspire to be president. You can be what you want to be, but you also got to make sure you have a job to pay your bills.
that's right.
It was
That's
that
right.
in the same sense, man. Like you can be whatever you want to be, but I ain't paying your rent. You're paying your rent. Whereas now is, well, I want my kid to be whatever they want to be. I don't want them to have to suffer. I don't want them to have to struggle. We do a lot of people do that out of the good kindness of their heart because you're their parents, right? But then at the same time, when you go too far, think about what made a lot of us, what made a lot of us good people, right? With good hearts, good morals. It's that
Mhm.
suffering phase. It's that having to work through it phase, having to figure it out to a degree.
Yep.
That's what made you. And we've taken that out. So now all these kids know, you guys are old enough. We've all lived through recessions. We know what it's like. Times are not gravy when there's a recession. Well, all these woke kids, they about to get a dose of reality because we're heading into one pretty much. I mean, it's natural. What goes up must come down, right? A part of life. Things are way too expensive. Like everything's
Yeah.
like insane, right? So there's got to be some kind of correction. Well, these kids are going to realize what it's like to be like, oh man, thank God I got a job.
Yeah.
They don't
That's right.
remember the days of you can't just be like give your boss the bird and go somewhere else. But here in Michigan, we had what they called the lost decade from
Mhm.
2000 to 2010. Pretty much during that lost decade, you were happy to even have a part-time job at Walmart if you didn't have a full-time job. Like it wasn't like Great Depression style or anything, but if you got a job, you hung on to it. Like
Mm.
and wherever that was, man, you did whatever you had to do to work hard and try to move up where you were at because Ford, GM, and Chrysler, they were not hiring. They were closing plants down. They were laying people off. They were buying people out. Like I don't know if you ever heard the song from I think it was John Rich where it was called "Shutting Detroit Down." And it was a very accurate portrayal of what was happening. And so these woke kids don't realize what that's actually like. They've only known a world where I'm pissed off. Screw you. I'm going to go get another job. Or like COVID, they shut everything down, but you got a free handout in the mail every week. Well,
That's right.
that's not how it actually goes 99% of the time in a bad economy. Most of the time, you're
That's
going to
right.
get about 6 months of unemployment and then told, go get a job or you better start
Yep.
figuring out a way to grow food in your backyard.
But you know what? That they're being conditioned to understand that, oh, when something bad happens, like I lose my job or my company shuts down or the government shuts everything down, they'll take care of me. I'm not gonna have to worry about anything. They'll give me they'll open up this PPP loan where I can go and I can make up a business that doesn't even exist and get thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars in some cases. And
Jesus.
then I probably won't be prosecuted for it. That's the conditioning that's going on. Like, at all times, the not only is the government trying to it's almost like the government is trying to go a little bit further with things to see how we the people will react to it, right? And now they know if we shut down everything, this is what's going to happen. People are going to whatever we say to do, they're going to pretty much be in lockstep. If we say go get a shot that you really don't know what's in it, you don't know if it's going to be safe and effective. You don't know if it's even going to do half of what they say it's going to do. We know now. Fast forward that it doesn't. But at the time, they said go get the shot. People got the shot. They said in certain places you got to have this what is this ID to
Yep.
show that you
I
have it in
remember
order
that.
to get on this train, this plane, or whatever the case, or to get a job, right? And what did people do? They did it because I have to do this in order to do my job. I have to do this in order to go see my family in other states. I have to do this to go to the hospital to see my loved one that's dying from cancer. So I'm
Right.
gonna do it. So they know that there's certain things that can happen or that they can, maybe perhaps influence things to happen. And they know how people will react to it. So going back to what you're talking about with the young people, they're growing up in the world of wokeness, right? Everything's easy, nothing's too hard. Everybody's getting a participation trophy, even when you
Oh
don't
man
win,
of God,
even
I
if
hate
you
those
get
things so
18th
much, man.
place. Yeah, you get 18th place and they're like, "Oh, you still get a trophy," you know? It's
My gosh.
totally different, man. Like these kids, they catch on to things
Yes.
really
Yes.
fast, right? I got kids, they know how to pull up a phone and find YouTube and find whatever they wanna watch and find any game to download. They figure all that stuff out at 3, 4 years old. So best believe you got 16-year-olds that are understanding the system and they're
Yeah.
figuring out ways to manipulate the system for their best interest.
I mean, what do you think about that, Jason?
Agree with it. 100% agree with the kids are getting smarter by the day. So yeah, they definitely find ways to manipulate the system, and we see that. So no, I
I'm sure.
100% agree.
Sure, y'all remember when we were young. We always thought, we're like, oh man, we know better than them. And back then, they'd always be like, oh no, you'll never know more than me. And now you're kind of looking back, like, oh yeah, man, that was just their way of trying to keep you at bay for as long as they could, trying to keep you from overtaking them as long as they possibly humanly could, man. That's oh man, I know who'd ever thought, right, when we were younger that we'd be growing up going, man, I miss the 90s. Like, you never thought that, right? Just like, our parents used to go, I miss the 70s, 60s, and I'm over here like, man, I miss the 90s, man. Everything just seemed because there was gay people back then, there was trans people back then, but all this stuff wasn't like I said. For me, it's like that forced part, right? It was just kind of everybody lived their life, and that's just what it was. It just we lived
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
Everything wasn't an explosion.
you know what? Like where I grew up, on like the other side of the tracks with like, majority, quote unquote black neighborhood or whatever, like all of us knew that one kid that was like homosexual or whatever the situation. Everybody knew him to be that. Everybody no we weren't like cool with it, but it was something that everybody identified and said, "Oh, well, when we go play basketball and football and whatever else in the neighborhood, when we go around the corner and have our fist fights, he's not gonna be a part of that." Like, it's just understood. He's the different one, right? Everybody acknowledged and identified the oddball, but we weren't like going out of our way to make fun of him or mistreat him in any kind of way. It just was understood. He's different, right?
Right.
And now and see, he didn't have any power in the majority of the rest of us that are that were not that way. But now the tables have turned because now that individual that's really the oddball is now the power. He has the power structure behind him saying he can do what he wants to do. He can dress how he wants to dress. He can go in any restroom he wants to go into, and you better not say anything about it. If you say
Nope.
something about it, it's gonna be a hate crime, hate
Yep.
speech, right?
Yeah, man, ain't that the truth?
Totally. So we have flip flop. It's upside down world
That's right.
because I don't care what anybody says. There's normal and there's abnormal. We all know normal is a man being with a woman. That's normal. That's how you reproduce children, right? If everybody was living the abnormal lifestyle of same sex marriage and transgender, how would you have kids?
Right.
How would kids be created? They can be. You still have a male and a female, right? There's not 1,000. What do they say? It's like 1,000 genders. How is there 1,000 genders when there's only two, and those two are needed? You have to have one of each to make a child.
Touche.
It's like it's insane how far we've come in just a short amount of time.
Yeah. I
Insane.
second that. Totally agree. And like you said, it's a nature thing, it's a logical thing, it's a godly thing. And man with woman. I mean, it's that simple. And the lines have been so blurred. There's all this confusion. You hear like these college kids getting interviewed. They're telling people there's 19 genders and the gender amount is still growing. Like, where are we going? What are we doing? You know,
Right.
oh my God. I feel like each passing year, like we're getting further and further away from common sense.
If they would put that passion into like traditional liberal issues like homeless people, things like that, if they put that passion that some of them have into fixing that problem with how radical some of them get, we probably wouldn't have any more homeless people or definitely a significantly reduced population of them. They would get help, because they would turn that passion into something that could help their communities rather than thinking that they're, superior to people that they don't say agree with or whatever, but they have like a superiority complex. I mean, it's pretty clear to see with some of them. I don't generally, and I'm not saying everybody on the right necessarily is innocent, but I generally don't see a superiority complex on the right too.
No, no, no. We were talking off camera about it a little bit with the homeless issue. Well, not homeless issue. We were talking about mental health issue, right? And you were talking about, back in like the 70s, 80s, how America as a whole, generally speaking, America was more conservative, and we took care of our mentally ill. We had institutions to go put them in and get them the medication they need, get them the counseling and therapy that they needed so they can leave and then be productive and live a normal lifestyle. And fast forward, we're more liberal as a country, and where are the mental institutions? Where are the places for these individuals to be admitted into to get the help that they need so that they can live a normal lifestyle? It's not there. So it's almost like the liberal I the liberal mentality is we're gonna talk about helping the least of these. They love that is one of their favorite phrases. It's the least of these. We're gonna leave the 99 and help the one. They like to say that as well. It's funny how they like to bring up all these like scriptures. They're not even Christian.
You're not wrong, man. You're not
So
wrong.
so so they do all this talking, right, about an issue, that needs to be solved. Or what they like to do is they'll throw a bunch of money into a program or whatever the case, and the program folds in no time, or there's like corruption that happens and it goes away. So they do
Yeah.
all that talking, but there's no action behind it, right? But then when we were more conservative, there was more action being taken. It's so interesting how that works, how the liberal mindset can hide behind we're for the everyday person, we're for the lowest of the low. Are you really? Because we're in a worse place with you guys in charge. And you can see this from city to city to city, state to state to
Yes.
state. You're in
Yes.
Michigan,
Yeah.
Detroit, Flint, I'm sure Lansing. I'm sure you can
Yeah.
find other cities that are run by Democrat, liberal minded people, and they probably all say it's about helping, the least of these, the people, the most poverty stricken areas, and do. But how does Detroit look in those areas? How how does Flint look in those areas? What's the crime like? What's the education like? I bet it sucks. How do I
Oh
know
yeah.
that? Because where I live in Montgomery is run by Democrats with the same talking points about equality, equity, inclusion. And most of the schools in the MPS school system are failing. If it wasn't for magnet schools, I don't know if everybody has magnet schools. Here we have magnet schools. That's like where the kids who care about school and the parents that care about their students, their kids, they send them there. They try to get them admitted there. And then those schools bring everybody else up, right?
Right.
If it wasn't for them, everybody would be failing,
We have
right? So
they call it school choice here.
okay. Well, yeah, we have school choice, but we have particular high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools that are magnet where they have focus areas like engineering. So this is interesting, right? Because people always assume it's Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Those are dummies. They're slow. They're in the country. Those are red states. We actually have a lot of programs that even the other states don't even have. And actually, if you take away cities like Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, Selma, right? If you take those school systems out of the equation, Alabama as a whole probably has some of the best students in the country. But because of these blue areas, they bring everybody else down.
Right.
Interesting how that works.
It is, man. What do you got to say about that, Jason?
We know that to be true. I mean, if you look at all of these liberal Democrat ran cities, uh, where you are, you're Flint, Michigan, you're Detroit, you're Chicago, Memphis, New York, anywhere you look, New York City, if it's ran by a Democrat, odds are, depending on the what people are there, it's going to be crime ridden, school's going to be bad, tons of violence. When we see liberals running these cities, it's always bad. Now, on the flip side, when you see a Republican, conservative ran city, the schools are better, less violence, I mean, the demographics, do play a portion in that as well, like who's living in the city. But for the most part, if it is a blue city ran by liberals, you're going to see a lot of violence, a lot of crime, a lot of bad schools. They just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is in a lot of liberal cities they have the income challenge, right? And the poorer you are, the more tendencies you have to be violent, to do crazy things because you're struggling, right? That's not like the case with everybody, but you seem to be
Is
more
that
inclined to.
and
I mean, not with everybody, but in a lot of inner cities where people are poor, and I'm not because for me it's not even like a racing, it's an income thing, right? When you have like, because think
but
about
okay,
poor
okay, but
countries.
but is it but is it really though?
I think by default, not maybe not necessarily. So I guess maybe the best way to clarify how I'm trying to say it is there tends to be more of that situation that comes up in a community like an inner city where it's tends to be gangs, right? They tend to be quote, a lot of democratic ran cities. They have those tendencies, right? But it's when you look at, so we have trying to think of the city's name up here. God bless Jesus. It's called Wyandotte, and it's pretty much been ran by Democrats forever, right? I mean, it's one of a few cities that has its own electric grid, its own cable company. It's ran by the
Hmm.
city government. It's not granted, it's not very good quality of any of it. They get power outages all the time. But to be fair, the city's very clean. It's put together. The downtown there is actually a destination for a lot of people in the local area down here because they keep it nice and looking like, an old school downtown type of thing. But to be fair, those Democrats there are a lot more moderate than, some of your bigger names. They're pretty balanced individuals. I know some of them, but it seems to be for me an income thing because I see certain Democratic cities that are ran south of Detroit that don't have as many problems as Democratic cities that are in a poor area. And
Hmm.
I'm taking like the conservative side out of it. I'm just saying just from my observation, right? Like think about I'm just trying to think of the best city. Grand Rapids here, right? Grand Rapids does have its problems just like any city, but Grand Rapids is generally a higher income, smaller metro area in Michigan. Not very well known, but a lot of wealthier people live up there, right?
Hmm.
They don't have as big of problems as the other smaller metro areas in Michigan, like a Flint, a Benton Harbor, things like that. And there's money in play there. And I'm not saying we need to be taking money from people and giving it to people in the poor communities, like robbing Peter to pay Paul type of thing. I'm not advocating anything like that. I just think it's like that economic opportunity, right? Whereas like 60 years ago, 17, 18 years old, you get a girl pregnant. Well, you can go out and get a factory job and at least try to figure out some kind of way to support your family. And maybe in 10, 15 years, you can buy a house. You can afford a car, right? You can afford to take care of your family and not stress as much. Whereas
Hmm.
to now, man, you do that, you are up a creek. You are panicking, you are struggling. And for me, I guess for me, I see that as like a big challenge for especially those cities.
So, all right, so it was something you said earlier about you were talking about the gangs. You were saying like in Flint or Detroit, place like that, you have these gangs that kind of are kind of ravaging the city and everything, the neighborhoods. So let's look back like in the 50s, like Chicago, we had like Al Capone and like the mafia and those type of gangs. That back then they ran neighborhoods that were poor, right? Like those weren't like affluent areas. Those were the gutters. Those were the ghettos, right? So now going back to that time, were they having the same issues, the same amount of crime and same types of crime that are happening right now in those same neighborhoods today?
Oh no, no, by no means. But on the flip side of it is they took care
So
of
so
their
what's so
communities.
what's the difference there? What's the difference?
They took
They're
they a
both they're
lot.
both they're both being run by gangs, and
Yeah,
they're both poverty-stricken areas. So what's the difference?
those get the mob back then. I don't know about the mob now, so I'm not going to comment on that part. Back then, Al Capone was known for doing food giveaways. They take food to people's houses. If they knew a family that was close to somebody, all right, hey, we're going to step in and take care of that. Where there's a lot of your modern street gangs, they generally don't do something like that, right? So you don't have that. That was those, it was kind of like that unwritten thing, right? Where a lot of people they didn't like the cops, they didn't like the gangs, but the gangs brought them some food during like the
Oh,
depression. They
no.
they took care of their communities.
Now they do that now. the GDs and the BDs and the Latin King, they do that now. They do
Oh, jeez.
food drives, they do turkey
Turkey
giveaways and backpack
giveaways.
drives and all that. They do too. They do all
I'll
that
see
too.
him doing it.
But
Maybe down there.
but,
I'll
but
see him
see,
doing stuff here too.
no, but see what I'm saying is the parameters of the neighborhood aren't that much different as far as they back then in the 30s they were run by gangs. It was poverty stricken. Fast forward to today, gangs, poverty stricken. The only difference is there's two different cultures within the area, within the time frames. So whereas you had more like the Italians or the Irish that were running it back then, they had a different culture, different mindset. Their mindset
Yeah.
was, yeah, we're going to do illegal things, but there's certain parameters that we operate within. We're not gonna kill innocent women and children. We're not going to be allowing our young soldiers to just be out here just beating old ladies over the head and taking their purse and running off. If they do it, there's gonna be
Right.
repercussions. Today, out the window. They
Yeah.
allowed to
No
do
doubt.
whatever they want to do. There's no structure. The culture is
Yeah.
totally different. They don't care about kids. They don't. They in Chicago. They lit a 15-year-old boy on fire, and he wasn't even a gang member. I remember that from years ago. They burned him alive in the alley. He wasn't even a gang member, but because he was in a certain turf, there's no structure. They decided to do that to send a message or whatever the case. So what I'm getting at is there's different cultures at play, and when you have a culture like the culture that's going on right now, it's there's almost really nothing that you can really do to really help the neighborhood as a whole, help the school system as a whole, because the people who are running it, the people who even the principals and the superintendents, their mindset is no better than the gang member, the gang leader. They have the same mindset. I'm going to take from the situation. I'm not going to give to the situation. I'm not going to make sure there's structure and all that. I'm going to let the kids run the insane asylum, which is why in the inner cities, from state to state to state, city to city, school systems suck because the people that are in charge have the same culture as the kids that are running amok, right? And there lies the issue. It's not a poverty issue. It's a mentality and a cultural issue. That's really what it comes down to. And I think we do ourselves a disservice. And I do understand it. I get it because a lot of people really don't want to. It's like a thing in America. Maybe not in many other countries, but in America, there's this thing where most white people, quote unquote, white people, don't want to tell black people that what they're doing is wrong or that they need to change anything. It's almost like you can kind of identify it, but you don't really want to just tell them straight up. But best believe on the other side, they don't care how you feel about it. They're gonna say whatever, and it's okay. There
Yeah.
lies an
No.
issue. So that goes back to what you said about earlier, the my way or no way mentality. That's another example of that. On the white side, they don't want to call out black people. On the black people side, they don't give a rat's you know what about white people at all. White people get
Right.
into an issue, but black people got their phone out. Oh, that's fun. Look at them white people over there doing leave them thugs over there. They're gonna put it on World Star because it's entertainment for
Yeah.
them. Their culture is this is fun. This is entertainment. I can get a laugh out of this.
Right. No.
White people
I
don't do
mean,
that.
I definitely get that. I mean, that goes back to, like what I always try to say is balance isn't weakness, right? I was trying, how can our country, because we obviously all got principles, right? We got like certain things in our convictions, especially being Christian, right? Even though I'm a middle of the road person, I know there's certain Christian convictions that I have that, a lot of people left and be like, hey, whoa, but, like I was saying, balance, it's not weakness, but how does the country find that middle again to where we can go, okay, we have our principles, right? But like, how do and I mean, let's subtract out, like the woke agenda part, right? Because even a lot of Democrats agree that that's a problem now. like Democrats are starting. Some of them are separating themselves from that extreme. Not all, but some. How do we find more like the John Fettermans of the world, or the I mean, God, a lot of people hate Bill Clinton, but man, Bill Clinton was balanced compared to what we got now, going on. Like, how do we get back to that part where you can sit down at the table, have a dinner with that person, and I don't know, by the end of it, we at least got some kind of I don't want to kill you anymore type of thing going on.
It just depends on the person you're dealing with. It's probably gonna be hard to do that as a whole, just because, biblically speaking, God is separating the wheat from the tares. So, like we were saying earlier off camera, you do have good versus evil. The life is a spiritual battle. So it's kinda hard to find common ground when you use common sense and one side doesn't use common sense. For instance, what common ground can you find with, a transgender who wants to, date somebody else and then have them adopt a kid? We can't, men, El Milner, we're the agitators. We can't find common ground with somebody like that because we're so against it. We draw that line in the sand. There's no fence for us to ride, essentially. In our book, Satan owns the fence too. So you're either on the left or you're on the right. A lot of times, there can be no middle ground. With some things, I guess there can be. You can find something, but for most things, for most Christ-like things that we're talking about spiritually, it's either God's will or it's Satan's will. You can't ride two horses, as a man. So it's either one or the other. It's up or down. It's left or right. So a lot of times when you're talking to these transgenders and you're talking to these, doctors who want to perform abortions and you're talking to these boys who want to be in girl sports, there's no common ground to be found. It's either a yes or a no.
Yeah, I mean, sir, there's a phrase that I've used a lot, and this is where I come from with it. Maybe I guess probably even try to clarify is because being a centrist slash moderate is sometimes really hard to define your position because it's so like I always like to say it's so nuanced, right? It's not very easy to navigate. But I like to say compromise. It's not like a surrender, right? It's how do you define it? So for me, it's like, okay, if you're a transgender, right? And hey, okay, just like when it became a country, we voted on the First Amendment. We voted on these amendments, the Constitution, right? If the citizens of the country say, not necessarily I'm saying like ban transgender people from existing, I'm saying like, hey, as a country, we feel that this shouldn't be in the schools. Okay, well, we have to accept that everybody likes to talk about democracy. Well, in a democracy, if we all choose that, then to a point, right? That's what it is. And I think that that is part of what we've lost, is the, okay, hey, I lost fair and square. All right, now I got to learn, I got to play by their rules until I can win again, right? Accepting that, not saying that necessarily that you were wrong or that they were wrong, right? It's just going, hey, it went this way. All right. So now we got to recalibrate. You know, we got to accept that. I guess maybe the way is recalibrate. How do we accept loss? How do we accept that without becoming violent as a nation? Like that is, I guess to me, like that's the line that we all struggle to as a country seem to define, right? Like how do
Yeah.
we disagree without going that far and accepting, I don't know if you want to call it defeat, loss, whatever.
So all right. So I'm gonna address that, but first I'm gonna say when you asked the question about how do you find people who or how do we get to people like Fetterman or like Bill Clinton was?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, those individuals have to be out. You have to speak out. Like they can't just be private behind closed doors agreeing with us. Having common sense, but then out in the public they're saying nonsense or they're agreeing with or they're standing beside people who push nonsense. So that needs to change. They need to be more outspoken and stop, hiding and being afraid to speak. So then going back to what you're asking about, finding common ground and how can we, not kill each other over our ideas and whatnot. Honestly, like when Jason and I are having our discussions with people or we make our content, we're talking about things that are basic, basic natural things. Like it's not even like out of the ordinary, right? And that is taken as, hate speech or it's taken as us being aggressive because we're trying to call a ball and strike a strike. And on the other side, right, we can have a civilized conversation. We
Yeah.
don't threaten people and all that. But on the other side, they get to a point where there's no more talking. They just want to just yell at you, call you names and all that. So really, it's a one-sided issue, to be honest, because if you look at the grand scheme of things, how many conservative Christian men or women have you seen go and shoot up a school? Have you seen be violent for no reason, seemingly, right? Like nothing provoked them. They just went and did something crazy, like shoot up a hockey game, like that transgender just did in Massachusetts or wherever that was, Rhode Island, I think. Like,
Yeah.
what about the Nashville shooter? Again, like we can
Touche.
go city after city, state after state, issue after issue where these people are committing acts of violence. Charlie Kirk, for example, he got killed by a person. Same thing. Couldn't defeat him in a conversation, so I'll just kill him. Right? Where are we doing that at? Like I see people that often say, "Well, it's a two-sided thing." Where there's people on the right that's doing violent. Where? Who? Can we name anybody? The only person I've heard come up was they said the person who was that Minnesota where the guy killed the state representative's wife or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, she
Okay.
was, well, it was she was the rep, and she sided with Republicans on an issue, even though she was a Democrat, and a
Yep.
Democrat extremist killed her for it.
Yeah. And so people were trying to say he was a MAGA guy, right? So they have to. So what I'm saying is they have to lie to make it be something that is not, because there's so many people on their side that are committing the violence that they have to lie about us doing it because we don't do it. Like we
Yeah,
just don't. Like if people want to go find cases, go find cases, go look for them. They're not there. Bringing up Dylan Roof, he's not a conservative. He's not
Yeah.
conservative. He was a leftist extremist, a neo-Nazi supremacist. That's leftism. That's not rightism. Like I don't think people understand politics or whatever. Like when you are on a side where you're hating people for the so-called color of their skin, or you're want to commit acts of violence, and that's left extremism. It's not right extremism. It's not. We're not the same.
No,
100%,
1,000 right,
100%.
man. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. It's always people, look at these past shooters like you're saying, they all look similar to a certain
Yes.
extent. They have this gender identity problem. It's a lot of transgender shooting up school. Like El just said, I can't think of one example where there was a conservative Christian doing that, So it's hard to find middle ground, like I was saying earlier, with somebody who's just so illogical, so far left, so loony, and we use, first of all, God's will, logic, being reasonable, and just common sense, which is super difficult to do that, with people on that side.
No, it is. I mean, I was telling you guys, off camera before, is I had posted the thing, I really wanted to go to one of these ICE protests and see, like, could I find somebody there that would actually have a conversation with me without being like, I want to punch you in the face because you're not thinking like I do? Like, we don't all here see it perfectly eye to eye, but we're not sitting
Mhm.
there telling each other we want to beat each other in the face.
Exactly
In
right.
principle, we agree on a lot of things. So I'm like, okay. And so I posted this, and I was getting called a Nazi, racist. I got told that, well, if you think there's a middle ground at anything, you support genocide. And I'm like, yeah, I even said on there, I'm like, y'all need to go really back and look at a history book, because Nazis killed, like, now some people are saying 4 million Jews, but the long standard time was 6 million, however you want to word it, plus the other
Mhm.
people that they killed. That's genocide. Okay. What's going on in this country right now is not genocide. It's not
Right.
genocide, no matter how you want to, then they'll try to pull out some kind of twisted Webster's version dictionary of fascism. And I'm like, you can pull out any definition from a dictionary, pick 2 or 3 words from the sentence and be like, see, told you so. It's kind of like, sometimes when you'll hear judges say the spirit of the law. It's the spirit behind what love or hate Donald Trump, love or hate Joe Biden or Barack Obama. None of them have been kings. They still, as much as power as they have, and they've done things that a lot of people don't like, the courts still can overrule them. And even when it comes down to it, even the president, he found another avenue to go after, like the tariffs, right? But he respected that aspect of the ruling by the Supreme Court, because he knew, like, okay, hey, boom, that's where the buck stops. Now, if this was Nazi Germany, they would just arrest the Supreme Court and do it anyways.
There you go. Yep. There you
You
go.
know,
Yeah. There's
that's
there's,
the
there's no
difference.
kings in America. The only king we bow down to is Christ. So,
Right.
Trump, I got a Keep America Great hat on. My brother's got a Make America Great hat. Like, he's not our guy. Like, we support our president because he's not a king, he's the president.
Right.
He's the president like he was the first term, when everybody was saying, "Oh, he's about to put all the blacks back to slavery and he's about to do this and do that." Like, and none of that happened. And then fast forward, Biden was in office for 4 years, and then Trump got back in, and all that talk about what Trump was gonna do, be a king, be a dictator, be a Hitler, and all that stuff, all that talk that they did the first time and nothing happened, they brought that back up again as if they didn't say it the first time. Like,
Right.
and still none of that's happening. We understand he's the president. He's doing a fine job as president. Are there some things that I don't like? Sure. There's things that I don't agree with. I didn't agree with the 2020 shutdowns. I didn't agree with the whole thing about getting a shot. I didn't get the shot to this day. Yeah, my brother didn't either. So, like, there's things that we didn't agree with, and I was vocal about not supporting that. But because I wear USA gear or MAGA gear or whatever, people just assume that, oh, you're a loyalist to Trump. He can do no wrong. Well, yeah, he can. He can do wrong. He's a man just like I'm a man. But
Right.
I support his vision for what he wants America to be. I support that. And everything that I've seen him do is, for the most part, is pushing us into that direction. So
Mhm.
I like it. You know what I'm saying? I support it. This is what I like, the fact that ICE is going state to state, rounding up illegal aliens, especially the violent ones, especially the
Yeah.
ones that have already committed acts of violence. And, like, this is, again, common
Common
sense. This
sense,
is
right?
something that's
Common
not
sense.
even, this is the layup. Like, who doesn't want a person that's a rapist, a murderer, to be removed from the country? Like, doesn't that make
Right.
sense?
No, 1,000%.
And and those are the people we're going. That's our side, and we're going against people on the left side who want this chaos. They want to go out there and protest. They want to interfere on ICE agents doing their jobs, and then they want to, run over an agent with the car and act like they didn't do anything wrong. So we're trying to find common ground with those people. Man, it's just, it's crazy.
It's hard, and it's not easy. Let me tell you, man, like, hopefully you guys think I try to be a reasonable person, right? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I try to be like, okay, hey, because there's a lot of things that I agree on principle on, but I know, like, okay, hey, it's just my heart tells me I agree with it, but I don't necessarily always know if I can be pushed that way for me, right? But I try to, like, even I have friends that are on that. I have a friend that we didn't talk for about 3 or 4 months because of my show, and he goes, and it was after I had Trump's former lawyer on. You're just supporting fascism and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, what the? I'm like, what about that interview gave you any clue of any of that? This guy's part of the American Rights Alliance trying to defend people's rights for getting unreasonable prison sentences. What about that screams fascism to you? Because in fascist countries, they don't do things like that. There's
Right.
nobody in a fascist country, no lawyer's sticking their neck out for you, no matter who you are, because they don't want to die. And
It should.
There you go.
and so, like, I try to. I can say that there's been people on the left, and I'll say this, and this is not knocking anybody on the right, because I've had several people from the right on my show, and they're good people. And a couple of them I actually have come to consider them friends. And we've gotten to know each other real well. But for the most part, I've had more moderate Democrats be willing to come on my show. They'll be like, hey, they'll either reach out to me, or I'll be like, hey, I think that you're somebody that's reasonable. They'll be like, okay, now, whereas there's certain, now, don't get me wrong, there's far left Democrats that, I've tried to reach out to, and I don't even get a middle finger back. I get ghosted. Like, they're like, yeah, I ain't coming near you, buddy. But I had somebody that was a far right person, and he goes, hey, man, I don't agree with you on a lot of things, but yeah, I can't do that because I wouldn't be able to have a civil conversation about it. So I'm just not going to do it. And I've had more moderate Democrats, I would say, reach out to me to be like, hey, yeah, let's talk about it. Then I have the moderate Republicans. Moderate Republicans are very quiet when they talk about, like, that silent majority.
Mhm.
The moderate Republicans are pipsqueak quiet. I don't want to say they're afraid because I'm not trying to call anybody like a coward, but they don't see an environment where they feel like they can talk is where moderate Democrats, for whatever reason, they seem to have a little bit want to have a little bit more of a voice. And I know a lot more moderate Republicans than I do moderate Democrats. But I've had more moderate Democrats being like, "Hey, man, let's try to talk about it. Let's figure out what we can do to figure something out." And I've reached out to politicians that come on my show. I had a lady. God, I'm terrible at names, but she's running against. She's the Republican challenger to Elon Omar.
Mm.
Great lady. She was. What I liked about her is her background essentially eliminated the race argument right from the get go. Because Elon Omar is an immigrant, right? This lady's an Iraqi immigrant. She's a woman. She fought for our country. Yeah, I don't know, fought for, no, maybe covered the country. I'm sorry. Like she served in more of like a professional capacity.
Mhm.
And I like the fact that, okay, boom, right off the rip, the race thing can't even be brought into it. What would Elon Omar be able to say to that, right? So that wasn't even something we even had to, it wasn't even in the conversation. It was about what she felt the issues were. And
That's
I
right.
that and I'm like, man, that's what we need. Not necessarily saying, we need to have everybody in the same race running against each other. But it was the fact that that factor wasn't there. You eliminated that divisive factor right off the get.
And see, it isn't that interesting because the only reason why you're even looking at it that way to where, oh, they can't find that as the like, who is they?
We are
It's not the right.
There it is. There it is.
yeah, yeah. It's
There
You
it
know what I'm
is.
saying? So even you recognizing it, like, it's messed up that the left has gone this far with the identity politics
yes,
where it's gotta be black, it's gotta be an immigrant, it's
yes.
gotta
Yeah.
be this, right? And then if the
Yeah.
other person is like has a background of like Hispanic or something, what is it? What's the lady? Nikki Haley? Isn't she like Indian or
Yeah.
something? I think she
I don't know her ethnic background. That's
yeah, I think Nikki, am I thinking the right person? Nikki Haley from South Carolina. I think
uh,
she's like half Indian or something like that. But whatever it is, it's some other nationality. They are like she's full blooded American, like born, like, you know what I'm saying? Like they ignore it
yeah. She's
as
a
if it's
daughter
not
of
there.
Sikh. I think you say it's Sikha. Is that how you say the religion?
Yeah,
Indians,
yeah.
Sikh immigrants.
SIKH.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's actually from how this is making it sound, is she's a full blooded Indian.
So now when you see the media, they act like she's not that, right?
I'm not gonna lie, she looks white as day to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But see, but okay, interesting. Now, interesting because doesn't Elizabeth Warren look the same way?
Yeah, but she's not American Indian at all. It's like point zero
Right.
zero one.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Now look at the difference. Nikki Haley, they don't give her that she's Indian at all.
right.
Elizabeth Warren, all she did was claim that she's like 0.005% Native American, and they were like put it all in everybody's face. Oh, she's half part Native American.
Yes.
You see how they do that? So on the left, they'll give themselves an out. They'll lie, boldface lie to you about something to push that, oh, they check these boxes. But on the right, they wouldn't even let you check the boxes that you actually belong in.
Yeah.
You know
no.
what I'm saying? And then it's gotten so bad to even where you just said, like, well, with the Iraqi lady, they can't say that, oh, it's she's minority, she going against Ilhan Omar. Well, why are we even worried about that? Oh, because the left makes it a big deal. They're the ones that made it a big deal, not the right. We don't do that. We're just when I have conversations with other conservatives, people look at me, they don't know what I am. People are gonna watch this or listen to this. Well, if they see me, they're gonna have different views of what I am, right? And I don't necessarily just get out there and just tell people right off, but I'll tell everybody since I know they've been wondering. They're probably like, "Oh, is he Hispanic? Is he an Arab? Is he a white guy? A black? What is he?" Well, to the world, my dad is a black man. My mom is a white lady, right? Like, but it doesn't matter because when I talk to conservatives, they don't even question it. They don't ask me. All they ask me is, "What do you believe? Why do you believe that? Where did you grow up at?" Like basic stuff. When I talk to people on the left, they're always trying to figure out what is he. You're a black man. You shouldn't think like that, black man. You shouldn't be a Trump supporter. The people on the right don't care. It's the people on the left that make a big deal about it. See, therein lies the issue. It's not about us not wanting to find middle ground with people. It's the fact that the other side refuses to find middle ground with what we're doing. They look at us as if we're just like scum of the earth. Like we got, what was it? When we were kids on the playground and like a little
Yeah.
boy kissed a little girl and they're like, oh, you got cooties.
Yeah. No, it's the
Like,
same
it's like
thing.
we got cooties because we're a Trump supporter or like that we have like common sense. But we're able to talk to other people though. They can have all kind of crazy hair. What'd you say, Jason? They got the blue hair. They got the girls got the shaved hair, shaved heads. They got the bull nose rings. We'll talk to them like regular people. You know what I'm saying? Because we're normal, but they're not normal, so they mistreat us. It's a total difference.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
you
no,
look like when you look a certain way and you think a certain way, if it doesn't line up with, the world's normalcy, then that's when you just, bring out a certain emotion in certain people. I'll tell you as well, to the world, I'm a black man, but to myself spiritually, I'm a Christ following conservative American. I'm an American first. I was born in America. America's all I know. I love my country. So I identify as an American first and foremost. But like I was saying, when you look like L, you look like me, and I've been accused of being white before, talking online. I'll tell you they don't know, what we are at times, just because like I say, when you don't think the way they want you to think and they can't put you in this particular box, then, all heck breaks loose because you don't think the way they want you to think. They would expect it from a white guy, but when you are a minority, we use these quotes all the time too, Joe, because to be honest with you, we don't even believe in race. We just speak on it, worldly. We know that, in the race, that's a social construct to
Mhm.
God, but the God we serve,
we're
Jesus
all the
Christ.
same.
There is no such thing as race. It's a spiritual battle. It's good versus evil. It doesn't exist to God. Nationality does. Because, Paul was from Turkey. You have all these other characters in the Bible. They were from some place and they identified as the land they're from. So that's why we say we're Americans. We put the quotation marks before we say black and white, because we know, for sake of conversation, you have to talk like
Yeah.
that, to people worldly. But no,
Mhm.
it's nothing but a social construct. At the end of the day, people are divided by their ideology, what you believe in. And a lot of times that boils down to being a conservative or being a liberal. Your ideology is what separates people. Any situation you could think of that we've talked about, it all boils down to what you think, how you think, what you believe in. Satan uses race, because it's a tool in his toolbox. But any situation we talk about, it always is going to boil down to what do you believe in and what do you stand for as a person.
Yeah, man. I mean, but see, like what we've done here today is what America needs to do, right? Like we're pretty close ideologically, except for some certain nuances that are a little bit deeper, right? But we're able to sit here and talk and not go, man, Jason, you're a terrible person. You should die tomorrow. And that's the part for me. Like what really got me to like push my show like way further than it is, right? Is it bugged me because I lost, like I was saying, I lost a friend literally because I'm a moderate. Like he literally tried to call me. He was like, "Oh, you're pompous. You think you're better than other people." I'm like, "I don't think I'm better than anybody, man. I just say let's all take a chill pill and let's all have a
You,
cup of coffee or a beer together if you drink beer." Like
you,
and
you,
Yeah.
he literally
you,
disowned me. We've been friends for
you,
15
you,
years.
you know what I would ask him, Joe? Since sounds like a liberal, when have the liberals or the Democrats been on the right side of history at any point? They were
Never.
they were for slavery. They started the Ku Klux Klan, the Democratic Jim Crow South, the stuff they're doing with the same sex marriage now and the trannies and everything.
Mm.
That's all Democrat views. When have they
Yeah.
ever been on the right side of history?
Now I haven't. Now to be fair, I haven't. I've lost more Democrat friends than I have Republican friends. I'll put it like that. But I have lost a couple Republican ones because, the minute I sit there and if I criticize, we'll say Bibi Netanyahu, right? Man, you support genocide. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's back the truck up here. I ain't saying nothing like that. Like let's calm down here. Nobody's saying like, we should be bringing back the camps or anything. Like
Mhm.
nothing like that. Nothing like that's going through anybody's head. And some conservatives, and then they're kind of like, well, they essentially just block me. I mean, I've lost friends just literally that knew I was moderate before I did my show. Okay, they
Yeah.
they know me half my life, But then as soon as it was like in a forum where they paid more attention, you know what I mean, than that casual
Yeah.
friendship, boom. And I never treated them any different. I even got like the text message proof as they were. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain things they said that I kind of was like popped right back. But then after a second, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's take a step back. I said, you know, I love you. I've known you almost half my life. I don't want to argue. I know what kind of person you are in your day to day life. You know, you live the way you preach. You know, and I'm not talking about like the woke values. I'm talking like, you know, like, hey, let's take care of our fellow person, you know, things like that. And I'm like, so, you know, I'm not gonna go there with you. You know what I mean? I'm like, let's just, you know, call it you're a pompous. I've gotten called a pompous ASS because I've said something like that. And I'm like, so you're telling me because I don't want to sit there and put you down that I'm pompous. It
Yeah.
just it doesn't download to me. I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, mate, was I stoned in school or something? Like, did I miss a lot of these lessons I should have learned?
Man, so, I know people probably remember that book, The Scarlet Letter. You ever heard of that
Yes,
book? You ever read that book?
yes. I
So,
read it a long time ago.
the lady yeah, I had to read it for, like, a project in, like, middle school or something, and it was, like back then, it was, like, so boring. Oh my god, it was a hard read, but looking back, being a grown man now, I look back at it, and, it's kinda interesting what you just said about that. I thought about that book because the lady committed adultery, right? And so her uh, punishment was she had to, like, wear the, like, embroidered letter A or whatever for adultery, so everybody knew that she cheated on her husband, right? So, that was her punishment, and so, it's like you gotta, like, because you're having a common sense podcast where you're presenting your ideas in a common sense way, being articulate with it, being thorough with it, not just on there yelling, screaming, cussing, whatever, calling people names. You're just speaking about issues logically. Because of that, now those certain friends, and mostly on the left, they're it's almost like you gotta wear the letter C or the letter R, right? R for
Yeah,
Republican, but also for racist, right? Because
yeah,
it's like just because you're being common sense, now you get put into that category automatically. It's like, what part of what I said was racist or whatever? Like, how is it xenophobic or how was it against Israel? And how do I want genocide? How we get to this extreme when all I'm doing is presenting an idea and I'm backing it up by saying, well, this is the fact, that's a fact, and I'm just putting two and two together, and like it's insane.
it is, man. It is.
But you know what? These people have been brainwashed. This is
Yes,
the result of brainwashing.
yes.
How many media outlets are there that are mainstream that are conservative?
I would have
How
said
many are there?
Fox a couple of years ago, but I don't even feel like they're concerned. I feel like they're more. I feel Fox has kind of turned into a rage bait network rather than a conservative network
Right?
because you know, like you had the Bill O'Reillys of the world who are true conservatives.
Yep.
Now, granted, he did have that, you know, shouldn't have been dipping in the pen and company ink type of thing, but
Uh-huh.
you know, outside of that, I mean, he's a pretty conservative guy in his in his
Yep.
you got to go, buddy. Like same with Tucker Carlson. I mean, Tucker Carlson's a little bit more extreme, but still conservative. Boom,
Hey,
you got to go. Everybody that was even
yeah.
borderline conservative got kicked out.
Right. And so even like so historically for the last 40 years or so, right? The only outlet that people can really ever bring up, and they all bring it up with me all the time, is Fox News. That's the only thing they can come up with. Fox News. Okay, let's look on the other side. What other mainstream media outlets are there? Oh, there's CNN. There's MSNBC. Now they're called like MS Now or something. There's CBS,
Yeah,
ABC, the New York Times, the USA Today. There's like all these public everything that's mainstream. They're all leftists. They're all at the very least they lean left at the very least.
yes,
So totally, like, there's not even the media doesn't find middle ground. When the
no,
media can't find middle ground and have a sensible way of presenting the news to us without it being hard left, right? Criticizing Trump every day. If they can't even do it, how are the everyday people? How are your friends, Joe? How are my friends, people that know me my whole life? How are they going to be able to listen to me talk and say he got some good points? I don't agree with everything, but he made some okay points. They can't even do that because they've been brainwashed by the people, the same media that doesn't push middle ground ideas. They push hard left ideas. So they're listening to that, and then they're listening to me and Jason talk, and you talk, and they're like, "Those people are crazy. They're violent." Uh,
Yeah.
those are the violent people right there. That like is brainwashing. That's exactly what it is, and it started
You know,
from elementary on up.
it's great you talked about the media because that really made me think of two reporters before. Well, I'll say first News Nation, and I think it's Newsmax. Newsmax, I think, is a little bit more towards the right, but
Mhm.
News Nation has like Chris Kumo on there now, and I used to not be able to stand that guy. Okay, like not
Yeah.
at all. But after he left that network and went there, the guy's a lot more moderate than anybody would have ever thought.
Yep.
When he was, I believe, MSNBC, right? I think he was, or CNN,
Oh, he was
whichever one it
on
was.
CNN.
So, yeah, right. He was obviously, but he even came out on News Nation. I think that's where he's at now. And he goes, I was told what to say, essentially. He was and him and Chuck Todd, who's a staunch liberal, both
Mhm.
came out and said they were told to lie about Biden's health. They were
Yeah.
told to lie about it. Like they both came out and said, now granted, Chuck Todd is still that diehard Democrat, man. He ain't backing down on that. But he came out and said, yeah, I was told to lie. And Chuck Todd's come out and said is what they did to Biden, the people around him should be considered illegal and they should go to jail for using the guy.
Mhm.
Well, his past taken out of it, that man wasn't in his right mind the whole time he was president.
That's right.
You can tell he had dementia. He has no idea the people around him in a lot of ways used him, and it was like keeping that elderly person alive so that way you get the social security check every month.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want to put them in hospice because you want them alive to keep getting the gravy train type. They abused it, right? And
Yep.
without his name, they didn't have a snowball's chance of winning. He was the only
Mhm.
name that remotely gave them a shot. You know, I've seen a lot of stuff out there recently. People are like, "Oh, well, come on, man, she's pulling at 30% in the Democratic polls," and I'm like, "All right, let's think about this for a second, y'all. 30%, and you're talking about she's the front runner. And the only reason she's considered the front runner is because she ran for president. And do you guys ever watch Joe Rogan? Or so he had Bernie Sanders on there, and I'm not a big Bernie fan, but I can respect Bernie because first he's pretty darn consistent in his beliefs. At least with Bernie Sanders, you know what you got coming to the table. And that's easier to deal with. When you know what's going to be coming in front of you. But Joe Rogan even challenged Bernie, and Bernie's like, oh, he kind of started the whole fascist type of talk, right? Saying so many words that he was like, yeah, but your party isn't even Democratic. He goes, since Barack Obama's first thing, one of your guys' people have been popularly, like your presidential candidates, they haven't been popularly elected. He goes, because if they were, Bernie Sanders would have gotten the nomination twice because
Yeah.
he beat Hillary and he beat Biden and he almost beat Obama. So, but they use super delegates to circumvent it. And then, he brought up also Kamala. He goes, Kamala, there wasn't even a debate. There wasn't even a primary. He goes, you guys don't do the very thing you're preaching. And Bernie Sanders went, you're not wrong. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not a Bernie fan, but he earned a little bit of respect for me for being able to say it without looking at Joe Rogan and going, oh, you're a fascist, just like start going off on a tangent, like he was just kind of like, well, you got me there. Like, how can he defend it, right? And Bernie Sanders is extreme, but
Yeah.
I
So
I can live with a liberal like that.
yeah, well, the thing about Bernie is now he will move the goalpost when it comes to. I remember being in like high school, going into college, and he was saying, "All those millionaires, they just own everything, and we need to tax the millionaires." And then it's like he became a millionaire, so then the billionaires, the billion we got like okay, it was the millionaires, you became a millionaire, so now it's the billionaires. So now I guess when you can make your billion, now be the trillionaires. So it's like but see, that's that Democrat mindset stuff. Like it is they have to move the goalposts once because they'll do the very thing that they're like blaming everybody else for doing. Like they'll call you a bigot for doing something, or like you're racist or
Yeah.
whatever for doing it. Then they'll do it, and then they'll check. Oh well, now is that over there? Now that's the problem. No, you're the
Yeah,
problem. You
that's
shouldn't be in
wrong.
office. Now, another thing about it is I didn't like the fact that Bernie ran or he claimed to be independent, but
I
when did he ever side with Republicans?
never.
But he sided
Not
with
once.
Democrats.
Now to be,
So you aren't you a Democrat?
I think he now now to be fair to Bernie, not I'm no Learfish, I'm not trying to be fair to Bernie, but I believe he did support auditing the Fed when a lot of Republicans wanted to, but they couldn't get enough of either side to really, kind of bring it to the table because I think they're all afraid of what they might find in some empty rooms when they go in there to audit it. Find out there ain't nothing in there. Them gold bars have gone for a long time and they're in someone's closet, man, and they ain't
Yeah.
giving them back.
Right.
And
Well,
that's
I guess a dead clock is right twice a day. So he that's
yeah,
one thing.
it's
Maybe
not very often.
hey,
You can probably count him on one hand, and he's like 78 years old. You can count him on one hand, but
yeah.
I guess I not that I agree with him or I'd ever be like, hey, I want to have you over for dinner all day type of thing, but
Mhm.
I can live with sitting on the opposite side of someone that can at least admit, you know what I mean, when
Yeah.
he's like, yeah,
Yeah,
man, it got me wrong, man. Like, what am I going to say,
Yeah.
'cause you
Whereas
know where he stands.
the AOCs of the world would have been like, racist bigot, you're, that would have just been the automatic response.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
Bernie can go, and that's, I guess for me, I guess what it boils down to, that's what we need back, man. When somebody can literally just sit there and go, look, dude, ABC, we've got it in concrete. This is what happened.
Mhm.
What do you say? You still might have a certain conviction, but how do you challenge it? You can't.
Right.
And people don't want to do that no more. They're so blind. Like I was telling you guys about crowds on demand, and I'm not gonna lie, man. That really that really changed a whole lot of how I view politics and how I viewed a lot of things, and where they push us this way, right? Like they make sure that we are pushed in a certain direction. They want you to think a certain way. They want you to be a certain kind of way. And I'm talking about the people who organize protests, who get these things on there. And I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but it's like the 80-20 rule in politics, where like they try to focus on issues, they can get like 80% of the people to blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah, things of that nature. I think that's where that comes from me. But it's really just kind of hard to find that balance anymore. We're able to sit here and have a calm discussion, right? But if it was me and Jason and then AOC, I'm pretty sure she would have found a way to call us both racist, and somehow we were both Nazis by the end of the conversation.
Oh yeah. It would have been a problem because first of all, y'all are men. That's already
Right.
offensive.
That's right.
You're already a misogynist because you're a male talking to a female. You can't
Well,
overtalk her. You can't interrupt her. You can't say, "Oh, hold on a second, AOC." She's gonna be like, "No, you're talking over a female." Like you would have no win. There would be nowhere you can win because everything that you do, she's gonna find a fault in it.
Card for it. Yes, you'll find a card to play.
Yeah,
right.
Or
she'll apply her checklist
yeah,
of all the things that's offensive in society and be like, which one is it? Okay, oh yeah, he's a man. Well, you are a white guy. And then for Jason,
white.
she
Yep.
say, oh, he's a white supremacist sympathizer. It's like, they just make up stuff.
Yeah, they manufacture, like you're saying, they literally manufacture things. They really do. Even with the 80-20 rule you're talking about, Joe, I'm sure the 20% that they're talking about, or 80, whatever, they're just manufacturing it. These liberals I'll joke about this, but they will steal your jewelry and then help you look for it. Because
Yes.
they're manufacturing things, they're creating problems, and it's a joke, man. Once you really see, like Elle was saying, we're brainwashed as children to think a certain way, to feel a certain way, to react a certain way over certain words. And, once Christ, removes that veil from your eyes and you can see things clearly, my God, it's life changing. It really is.
Yeah. No. I mean, it is, man. It's just insane. We can't have those conversations anymore. And I mean, that's why, like I was telling you guys, man, I like what you guys are doing, right? Like you're putting it out there without demonizing someone's existence. I think maybe that's an even better way to put it, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, we don't like what a lot of people woke and left, but we're not sitting here saying they don't have a right to be alive. They don't
Right.
have a right to
Right.
exist.
They
And
can,
like,
yeah, they can exist. They can speak their mind. We'll have a conversation with them. All that. Like we just don't agree with the lifestyle and like just like it's their right to have the lifestyle, it's our right to criticize or challenge the lifestyle and say maybe you shouldn't be living like that. Maybe that's detrimental to your health, to your mental health. It's nothing like it goes both ways. Like if we're able to say certain things, they're able to live their lifestyle. We're not out there like stopping them. We're not committing acts of violence against them just because they're different. That's weird. That's strange. That's not what we do.
Oh yeah,
It's
no,
it's the other.
yeah, 1000%, man. Man, I mean, this was a great conversation, man. Man, we already been out here like almost an hour and a half. Holy cannoli! This is man, we
Hey
could
man,
go all
hey,
day, man.
we're finding middle ground.
Right? I
Yes.
mean, but that's what it's all about, man. Like, you go home at the end of the day, you still got your convictions, but you know what? I think everybody always tries to walk away trying to have a better understanding. And even if you don't, you at least try to develop a different level of respect for someone. Like, okay, hey, it just is what it is. Now, when you see them walking down the street, you're not thinking that mother effer. You're just going, hey, that man, that guy's a weirdo, but yeah, he's whatever. He's okay. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
we used to do back 20, 30 years ago. Like, yeah, Jimmy down the street, he's a little bit of weirdo, man, but yeah, he's all right. You know,
yeah.
or it's just how it was. Like, one of my sons has autism, and they treat it like something's wrong with him. And I'm like,
Mhm.
stop treating him like he's an invalid, man. He has certain communication issues, but he literally is smart as everybody else. He passes all normal tests. He just
Yeah.
has what they call echolalia. Like he would say, Jason, say hi, Jason. Or he'll go, Jason, say hi, Dad. Like it's an echolalia thing. But
Mhm.
back when we were growing up, it would have just been, he's just lived different, man. Yeah, whatever. And if somebody would have said something derogatory towards it, no
Mhm.
matter who it was, people would have been like, yeah, dude, that's not cool. He's just
Yep.
different. Now where they're like, no, no, there's something wrong with you. We want you to know that there's something wrong about you. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, stop treating them like there's something wrong with them. Do they have something? Well, yeah, duh, no shit, Sherlock. But
Yeah.
it's like, that doesn't mean that they're less than of a person. I mean, think Albert Einstein, by any measure of what you look at, he'd been considered autistic in today's world.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was considered one of the smartest people ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And see those people want to highlight the challenges that people have to try to like exploit it, right? Because that's why they're trying to make it a big deal about, oh, look over there, like that kid's got this going on. Like we know that, but why are you pointing it out? Oh, because you want to weaponize it for another thing. That's what that is. It's like they want to weaponize these issues that people have. Like they change like language, for example, right? I grew up and we all know people that are like in a wheelchair, they're called handicapped. Now they got this thing handicapable. Handicapable is this like they changed language
Never heard that
because
before. I'm sorry, I'm not
yeah,
laughing, but
yeah,
I've
like
never heard that before.
handicapable. Oh, there's other ones too. Can't think of any. Like there's other terms that they've changed over the years. Like you can't say the R word, the RETARD word. You can't
Yeah.
Yep.
say that, right? Because it's offensive now. But back in the 90s, there were facilities literally called
Said it.
for those people. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that name was on the building, but now you can't even say that word. It's like offensive, but it has a
Do you
meaning
guys
now.
you guys ever listen to Tom McDonald?
I'll listen to him. I'm not a big fan, but yeah, I'll listen to
Yeah,
him.
I'm not like I like a lot of his stuff. I'm not like, oh my God, like a diehard, but he has like essentially that similar message. Like, it
Mhm.
pretty much like all of a sudden you just can't say this. Like, who cares? And then I think I think it was the song Everybody Hates Me or Everybody Needs Me or something like that, where
Mhm.
he was like, he said you can't say something. He goes, but y'all are retarded. And he
Yeah.
said it like towards the end of the song, and I was like, I was surprised, what I mean? Because usually when he says stuff like that, he'll spell the word out
Yeah.
rather than just saying it. Nah, man,
Uh-huh.
he just came right out and said it. And I was
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's kind of what I like about the guy, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
says what he is. Don't always agree with him and everything, but I'm like, I don't know, man, he's more patriotic than a lot of Americans I know, and he's Canadian. And
Yeah.
he cares
Yeah.
more about our country than some of our own citizens. And I'm like, to me as an American, if I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like, that's almost shameful. Not saying he shouldn't
Mhm.
care as much as he does, but it shouldn't even be in the realm of measurement that somebody that's technically a quote unquote immigrant, whatever you want to label it as, I don't really consider Canadians immigrants, but it shouldn't even be like, why are we even to that point where that person could be more patriotic than somebody of their own country, right? If you go to Germany, right? A lot of Germans, they still have what they call, my family background is German, right? They still have what they call the Holocaust guilt, depending how you want to word it. Here in America, we're so far removed from slavery that a lot of people are kind of like, they don't have that feeling, right? And, when I've talked to people from over there, I'm like, listen, man, I've got a German background, but I don't feel guilty for anything that the Nazis did because my family wasn't a part of it. I had
Right.
nothing to do with it. Is it a crappy thing that happened? Did those guys all deserve the fate they got? 100%. But I'm not going to feel guilty for something that I didn't do.
Right.
Do I agree with those people
And
being
you
punished?
shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't feel that way. I totally agree with you, Joe.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
and so I look, and I'm telling you, there's a lot of, and I'm not knocking anybody that's German because ironically, I had no idea, but I use a thing called I forget, not Pod Chaser, but there's another site out there that I'm drawing a blank on, but they rank, right, and they'll tell you your rankings in different countries, and I don't know, somehow in the last month and a half, I've started ranking in Germany in politics. I don't know why, but German people are tuning in.
Yeah. Man, your DNA is seeping into the algorithm.
I was sitting there, I'm like, I got an email one day and it's like, you are now ranked in Germany. And I was like, oh, no, I'll take it. I'm not going to like put it down, but I'm like, I would have never guessed.
Yeah.
And, when I've talked to some people from there, they really feel guilty about the Holocaust. Like they did it. And I'm like, I don't live there. I wasn't born there. So I'm just like, recognize that it was bad. I know it's a whole lot more recent history for you guys, over there, not even 100 years, ago, this was happening. And I guess it's a lot
Mhm.
different when it's in your face every day. But how do you feel so guilty? You carry that weight around with you that you feel guilty about it to where you let what's going on happening there right now because you're so afraid to be like, hey, you don't fit into my society. The refugee crisis they're having, right? There's a lot of people that are Muslim there that are saying, and I'm not saying people that are calm immigrants. I'm talking these people that are in a lot of these riots there that are going, we're here to take over the West. You should be dying, this, that, the other thing. And and some of these people, they're openly saying it. It's not like this hodgepodge pull from the sky theory. No, it's actual, like they'll go on camera and be like, everybody in the West should die. Well, then why the hell are you in their country, man? If it's so great, like, I don't
Yeah.
care where you live or what your religion is, man, but don't come to my, it's like if you go in someone's home, you don't disrespect them. If
That's
you go
right.
into someone's house and their rule is you take the shoes off, you take the shoes off,
Mhm.
you're in their house,
Yeah. What's the
you know,
what's the
and
what's the saying? When in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
right. And there's Germans over there now. They've got tons of videos on Instagram where they're rallying and they're going, get them out, get them out. People are like, oh, look, the Nazis are back. And I'm like, no, man, they're not saying get everybody out. They're saying get everybody out that says they hate us and that they want to kill us. That's what they're saying. And it just astonishes me that somebody can openly say, I hate you and I think you should die. And people go, well, there's nothing wrong with that. They're an immigrant. You shouldn't be able to challenge that.
Yeah.
You know that they would kill you just as quick too, right?
That's right. That's right. It sure will. You know what? You were talking about the Germans having like that guilt, Holocaust guilt.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
really, I think it's the same thing that the same reason why many Americans have like this guilt about slavery, and although we don't have any connection to it other than learning about it in history, like everybody else. Like it's being taught, like from a young age, you're taught about slavery. You're talking about certain ways that slaves were killed and how they were brought over on the ships and all that. They don't tell you about the tribes over there in Africa that were kidnapping other Africans and enslaving them and then selling them to the Arabs, and then the Arabs were selling them to the white man. They don't tell you all that. They skip that part and then they just jump to, oh, the white man went over there and took this. That's not how that happened. Um, but they teach you this history and they lie to you a lot, and it creates this emotional connection to something that you never experienced. Same thing with the Germans, I'm sure. They've been taught
Yeah.
since a young age about how horrendous it was and how their ancestors did this and did that to these people and these kids and these women, and now they have an emotional connection to it, although they never experienced it, although they never even
Yes.
saw it. You know, like that's what it's just it's brainwashing. Like that's the only reason why those people would have the guilt. It's because they've been brainwashed to have the guilt. Otherwise,
Well,
they
It's
wouldn't
all
have
by
it.
it's all by design too, like you're saying, academia, it's all by design. Like Elle was saying with slavery, like you're saying, in Germany, they teach it from an oppressor victim state, right? So they want, one side to feel, "Oh, man, we're struggling, everything was bad, yada, yada, yada," and the other side has to feel so sorry, remorseful, apologetic, because that's the way they teach it, and they want that design there, they want that conflict there. They
yeah,
don't teach history correctly. The slavery. Why are we teaching children about slavery in the first place? And then we're going to teach it incorrectly. And you could tell they want that oppressive victim thing there because they leave out the fact that black people own slaves too in America. You got your Anthony Johnsons of the world. I never see him in a history book. They leave out William Ellison Jr. I don't see him in a history book. They only teach it to you in a way where they want you to think that white people were the creators of it. They started it. They kept it going forever, when in actuality, white Americans are the ones who ended it. Whereas in other places, you still have slavery today, but they don't teach it to you this way. They put it all on the white man, when in actuality, we should be thankful that the white man was the one who helped end it. But history books will never teach you that, and they will never teach you that black people owned slaves in America.
Yeah,
They
well,
never teach it that
a
way.
good thing. Have you guys ever heard of Operation Paperclip?
Operation Paperclip. I don't.
So it's, and this is what kills me. And I'm not trying to make it like a Democrat versus Republican thing, but it was done by Democrats. Democrats in the 40s were obviously a lot different than Democrats now. But,
There were some differences, but there's a lot of similarities.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
but what they did is after, like, towards the end of the war, the
Mhm,
United States kidnapped slash took, probably these guys ran voluntarily, Nazi scientists.
mhm,
And yeah, I'm sure you've Warner von Braun. So he's the guy who
okay,
helped put America, into space, built the rockets. Well, he was the Nazi scientist who designed and built the V2 rocket. How did he do that? With Jewish slave labor. Where did those slaves go after they couldn't do anything? They went to a camp to die. Nobody in America knew that's who he was until after he died, when the government declassified it in the 80s. And this is where I go, I'm like, if people on the left want to go, oh, not well, Democrats brought a lot of Nazis over here and gave them a free pass because they were willing to help America. So if you truly cared about genocide and things like that, you would look and know that your own country excused guys that committed mass atrocities. But the reason why they did it is those guys gave us the edge over the Soviet Union. That's literally what it was all about. It wasn't because any other reason except for we seen the Soviets as a threat, which they were, and we knew these guys had the keys to beat them. The only reason that they weren't able to beat them is because they decided to try to fight the whole planet. They had focused on the Russians, they might have made progress. And they don't teach in history that the West, they love, oh, Hitler's so bad. But the West tolerated Hitler because they viewed him for a while as a buffer between the Bolsheviks slash communists and the democratic West. They were kind of like, yeah, let's let him do his thing. As long as he doesn't come too far our way, no harm, no foul. If they truly cared about that rhetoric, long
mhm,
before he rearmed Germany, they could have done something about it, but they chose to go, well, we're going to let it happen. And I learned something. I can't think of the guy's name right now, but he was one of Hitler's closest allies. And I learned about this on, I forgot where it was. He was kind of like, I almost say like spy guy, but anyway, so after the war, the United States and the CIA, and we kind of worked with him and kept him in Europe under a different name. And he used the Nazi spy network and was giving us all the information on the Soviets all the way up until he died. So this was
mm,
the guy who helped. Yeah, and they just, and it's not that I'm going like, ooh, bad or good. It's just going, I think it's important that we understand what happened and the
yep,
why, the who, the what, the where. Whether you agree with it, you don't agree with it, you need to know.
yep,
Like, Henry Ford, right? I'm from Detroit, right? Okay, car guy. One
mhm,
thing they never taught me growing up is Henry Ford actually wrote an anti Semitic book, published it, and issued it to all of his employees.
mhm,
He issued it like it was the company magazine, like saying how bad Jews were. And they didn't teach that to me in school.
mhm,
They kind of taught that he actually wanted to build war factories for Hitler. FDR used the
yeah,
Defense Act to stop him.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's where I
I
thought you were
don't.
about to go when you brought up Henry Ford. I thought you were gonna bring that up. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and and I'm not saying bad, good, whatever. I mean, because Henry Ford did. I mean, he really put America on the map with an industrial base. I mean, he really made it so we could mass produce.
Yeah.
He made it practical, but it's not as cut and dry as they like. When you turn on the History Channel, they try to portray it as America came in, the knight in shining armor, and then afterwards we were the beacon of light around the world. Well, I mean, we are, right? And I still think we are. There's no doubt about that to me. But it wasn't like it was this shiny beacon that never had a smudge on it ever before. And I
Mhm.
think, to deny it, we're doomed to repeat things, right? If we don't know the truth, we're going to repeat it, and look at, I mean, nation building, right? We go in, we destroy a country, and surprise, surprise, that country can't fix itself because they didn't want to from the get go. Like Vietnam, we went there and tried to be like, well, we know what's good for you. Well, that didn't work out well for us. And I'm not knocking any soldier who died in there because I'm very pro military, right? But we thought that we knew better for them, or we knew, hey, this is how we're going to stop this. Then
Mhm.
you look at, to me, like I look at Syria. Syria, the Syrians rose up. I'm sure there's other influences, we all don't know about, but the Syrian people put their own blood on the line for their country. The majority of them went out. It was a majority Syrians, outside influences for sure. But to me, as a country, if we get foreign aid or even anybody, if you ain't willing to stand up for yourself, I sure as fuck I shouldn't be going out there fighting for
Yeah.
you.
That's
And
that's my thing about the whole Palestine thing. Like,
oh
those people over
man,
there, they outnumber Hamas by millions, and yet Hamas, that small little group of people run this make them people do whatever they want them to do. Like,
yeah,
but yet we're supposed to be over there, like, pro-Palestine? Like, why exactly? Why are we
yeah,
worried about Palestine when they don't worry about themselves?
right. I mean, with that whole war, I'm like, Israel responded the way anybody with half a brain cell would have, right? After
Yeah.
October 7th. All liberals who act like, oh, I wouldn't. I'm like, let me come into your house in front of you, do something like that to your daughter or your wife while you're watching. And I guarantee you're not going to be like, well, it's okay. No, you're gonna respond the same exact way. But where I go is I'm like, okay, you look at Palestine now, man, it's just rubble.
Mhm.
Okay, at some point you got to go home. Okay, you proved your point. You killed by 50, 100 times more than suffered on what they did. And I'm not trying to be like apples to oranges or, eye for an eye.
Mhm.
But at this point, all you're doing is you're just bombing rubble. The kids who might have been anti Hamas. Well, now all they see is you killing their mom and dad. And the only thing that this 6, 7 year old's going to know is I already had nothing. And this bomb fell out of the sky and killed my parents. And it came from there. And then they're going to have Hamas sitting there in their ear going, well, yeah, it's those bad Jewish people over there that did it, or it's this bad person that did it. Because, like where I think the West has differed from a lot of other countries are is okay, hey, you fight your fight, you go home, you call it a day. They're not calling it a day. And it's like, what are they gaining by keep bombing these people? They have nothing left. I mean, most of them
Yeah.
don't even have
Well
water.
what the thing is, you gotta eradicate Hamas. They have to be
Yeah.
eradicated. Like, there's no with them, there's no, "Oh, we're gonna, call it a day and we'll come back, next week, next year, 5 years from now." You can't do that because as long as they're still alive and well, their whole mission, like you're talking about, their whole mission is to destroy the West and destroy Israel, and they're gonna raise the next generations to have that same belief system. So as long as you have Hamas and that ideology that they believe in alive and well, it's gonna continue. Like, you'll keep having Israel respond that way. If Hamas wasn't there doing that, Israel they wouldn't respond that way. They wouldn't have a reason to.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
you got Hamas and you got, whatever these other groups out there, Hezbollah and all this type of stuff. Like, those groups, like, you don't have Israel with these, like, extreme groups that go and just, like, attack places. Like, does that even exist? Is there any group that Israel has that's a, like, extremist group that literally attacks other nations? Does that even exist?
uh,
Like, are y'all
not
aware
like
of that?
that. Not the. No, me
I'm not
neither.
aware of that, right? So, but yet you have these groups in Palestine, Iran, Syria, Yemen, Jordan. Like you have these countries have extremist groups that hate Israel, and then they not only do they hate them, but they act on the hate.
Yes.
I can't. I mean, if Israel wants to blow them off the map, I got nothing to say about it because if those countries will allow those groups to run things, then you're complicit in the madness, in the chaos. You're complicit in it. You should
Yeah,
not have that in your country. Like that's like
I think
if you're in America and you're in like a bad neighborhood or whatever, and there's like a drug dealer moves on the block and he just sets up shop. He's got like 2, 3 houses. We call them trap houses. He's selling his drugs. He's got his empire going. Got everything rolling. Got the junkies rolling through, getting their drugs, and then you got shootings happening all the time. Whose responsibility is it to clean that up? Is it the state that they live in? Is it the United States president? Is it his problem? Or is it the people who live in the neighborhood's problem? Should they be the ones that are saying, you know what? We're not gonna be allowing this. We're gonna come together, figure out a way to get that guy locked up, get him out of here. Otherwise, guess what's gonna happen? He's just gonna keep expanding his empire across the whole neighborhood till the whole neighborhood is rotten. That's how it works.
yes.
When you live somewhere, you need to deal with the issues that's there. You can't push it off to somebody else and say, "Oh, it's their problem." No, it's your problem. You need to deal
You
with
ain't
it.
lying.
Sure.
Yeah, you need to deal with it. So, like I can't get upset with Israel because what other countries are doing to Israel, Israel isn't doing. They don't have any groups that do that. These other countries do though. So, if Israel wants to bomb them off the map and what so-called genocide them, like they didn't start it. The other people started it. So, like I mean, if you hey, don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
No, I mean you're
Yeah,
not wrong.
100%.
As we get towards the end here, I'll say this. I think I did a show with a guy who's a former CIA counterterrorism analyst. And ironically, the group that he was designated to study was ISIS. But it was before ISIS was even like, I mean, they were just kind of like an off the wall, like no, I mean, it was kind of like your local lollipop shop. That's how they were thought of, right? And, it was just him and a couple of people in a room that kind of figured all that out. But then when ISIS took, kind of became who they were, it became obviously somebody that was in demand inside of the CIA and around the world. But like what he said is a lot of those terrorist things that go on in the Middle East are funneled through Iran. And so I'm wondering if you'll see a drop off in some of this extremism if the current Iranian regime falls, which it seems like
Mm,
it's going to. There's a lot of, Iranian exiles that say it's going to happen, but I mean, who knows? I mean, it's the world looks one way one day, and then the next day you're like, oh, it didn't happen. And, I thought, to be honest with you, I thought that they would have already fallen, but they
mhm,
haven't. But I think that if that does happen, you're going to see a lot of that go away because this guy, he just told me, he goes, listen, when I was there, ISIS, some of Al Qaeda, like a lot of this money for a while for Al Qaeda, it was Osama bin Laden, right? Because he was a very wealthy billionaire, well, not a billionaire, but he was wealthy.
mhm,
And then, now you got Iran that, they prop up Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, like, okay, so that goes away. What happens in that region? Because that region used to be a lot more, they've always been very conservative, obviously, because, Islam's a very conservative religion. I mean, it does not, unlike Christianity, it does not allow very much room for interpretation.
mhm,
It's pretty
right.
concrete, and kudos to them for being able to maintain it. But I think once that goes away, we might see a different Middle East. Obviously, there's always still going to, they've been fighting for thousands of years. That one, but I think you might see a little bit more of a decline in the craziness coming out of there. So I
Yeah,
know that's why a lot
it
of
may
Iranian
stabilize.
exiles want it. Yeah. So that obviously part of the money for China too. A lot of people got that in their head. Getting
Mhm,
things away from China. So I mean, we got that coming. It might happen. It might not. I'm hoping that it does.
yep,
I'm not anti-Islam or anything. It's just that current regime there is they are not a good force for anybody involved. And a lot of former Iranians even say, even I had a lady on, she is a Muslim, but she's Iranian. But even she says that the Ayatollahs and the people that are in power there are terrorists. They're dangerous. She's like, they don't even represent. the Muslims in Iran, like the majority of them, was something that I learned from Goldie Gamari. My wife says, what she says about it, but she had, she had brought up and she had played a clip on one of her shows where one of the Iranian clerics that's head of tracking the mosques said that they closed like 20,000 mosques because Iranians stopped going. You would have never, I'm not gonna lie, until I heard that, I was like,
Wow.
if somebody would have been walking down the street and told me, I'd been like, yeah, okay, you know. But it's the fact that that kind of country, right, where they're extremists, they're willing to go, yeah, less people are going to, they're not going to the mosque anymore. Yeah, I mean, and I think if that government falls, we're going to find out a whole lot more of what's going on there. But you're seeing a huge rise over there of like that Persian pride is really starting to come out for them again, and and that it's a good thing for the Middle East. The Middle East was a lot more stable when you had a level-headed Iran, even before the Shah. They had a Muslim
Mhm.
leader, and it was things were a lot more stable when you had a stabilized Iran that was not extreme. And hopefully for
That's
the
right.
world and for everybody involved, we can get to that point because whether people like it or not, that world of the that part of the world is Islamic. So the best thing we can hope for is for them to be able to be at peace with themselves and their neighbors. And that's just
Absolutely.
I don't know if it'll ever happen because
Yeah.
some folks over there they like the, not all of them, but a lot of them like to fight. Man, there's definitely not afraid to box. I'll put it like that.
Uh-huh.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys coming on, man.
Oh, thank
If
you.
you guys ever need a guest on, man, I'm always open, willing, and I can debate without putting people down.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
Joe.
hard. Don't get me wrong, man. To be fair to all the listeners out there has been times where I've got worked up with someone where they're like that quick jerk moment comes out of there where I'm like, you know what? And then I'll catch myself and I'll be like, okay, hey, back off. Like, that's because it's that instant anger, right? Because when someone goes after you a certain way, that there's that part of you that's like, man, I will knock your teeth out if you talk to me
Yep.
like that, dude. Like, treat me with the same respect you want to be treated with. And then because you already know in real life, man, half these people that talk like that, if most of us walk and they would probably be laying on the
Mhm.
ground somewhere with their
Yeah,
teeth knocked out.
definitely.
Like, I dare you to talk to me like that to my face because it ain't gonna happen.
Yep.
Keyboard warriors, keyboard warriors and the internet definitely makes them a lot tougher than they are. And then people from our side, like we said, the conservative side, we will sit down and have a conversation with you. We don't
Yeah.
have to resort to name calling. We know the truth, so their truth only gets them but so far because it's really not truth, if you will. So
Yeah,
Joe,
look at
I wanna thank you too, Joe, for having, the agitators on your platform. We sincerely
Yep.
appreciate it. We love to have you on our
yeah,
show as
man.
well,
I'd
whenever
love to
you're
do
free.
further debates with you guys in the future, man, because we can actually, we can talk about things, man. And that's like this right here. This is what America's supposed to be about. This is what it. This is literally right here. This is the country that our forefathers wanted. They wanted people who don't see
Right.
eye to eye on every single thing to be able to sit there and go, I don't agree with that, but yeah, man, that guy over there, he's a jerk. You know what I mean? Like to be able to just
Mhm.
do that and then be like, well, you can't stand it, but oh, he's coming around. Let's have a cup of coffee and see if he's changed his mind. Those days are
That's
gone,
right.
and that's what I liked when I looked at your guys' stuff. And a lot of people, when they hear Christian conservative men, they automatically go, boop, it's one way. And it's
Mhm.
like, that's not the case. You listen to people, like dial in. That's why I built my podcast, this show around long form, because you don't learn a lot in a 30-second clip. You learn a lot about what's going to piss you off, for
Yeah.
sure. You learn a lot about what's going to get you going. And hey, man, shorts that are out there, even some of the ones I put out there, and I try to make them as balanced as I can because sometimes some of the title suggestions I'll come up with, I'm like, I don't know, man. I'll go back and I'll change it a couple times. Back, that's a little bit too far for me. Where I know
Uh-huh.
that that's kind of the principle behind it, but I don't want to approach it from that angle. And I have to, but deep down, I'm sitting there going, I'm like, yeah, man, I really want to tell it to them like that. But I know that's not really where my heart wants to go with it. It's just that you want to stand up for yourself,
That's
right?
right.
Because you feel like you're being attacked for existing as a person, as a man. And that's where I really liked what you guys did and approach that. Because, when a lot of people think of Christian conservative men as staying up for themselves, they see Andrew Tate. They don't
Mhm.
see everyday guys like you guys that go to work, they come home, they pay their bills. They
That's right.
see Andrew Tate. And I'm not trying to knock Andrew Tate like as an overall, but sometimes he just goes like way off the thing, and hey, he's just not my cup of tea. I agree
Yeah,
with him in principle and a lot of things, but he's not my cup of tea. I listen to him sometimes. When he says certain things, I'll be like, I'm not like somebody else where I'll be like, well, I just don't like anything he says, so I'm just turning him off. I'll tune him in. I want to see what you got to say. Maybe there's something you might say that I agree with. I
that's
think
right.
that part is what gets labeled on Christian men. I mean, even though I'm not hardcore Republican, I'm still a Christian man. I still have Christian values. And when you say that word Christian, it's automatically boom, you're an extremist. You want to kill everybody. And it's like, whoa, where are you getting this from? And keep doing that, man. Like no matter how much anything opposes you guys
Yep.
comes out there, man. Do not give up, man, because that's what people want. People want to give up. And I'm not knocking Adam Swart here. Adam, if you listen to this show, he's the CEO of Crowds on Demand. I'm not knocking you, dude. But that because he's as a person, the dude's pretty cool. His company does some stuff that I don't necessarily agree with,
Yeah.
but things like that want to see people like you fail. They want to, or people
Yeah.
like me, I should say, people like us, right? They want to see Christian men fail. They want to see that if you're not part of what they view as the future, they want to see you fail, literally just because of,
Yeah.
who we are as humans. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
I
well, hey,
appreciate
I
you
hope
guys coming on, man.
Appreciate you, Joe.
Yeah. And
for sure.
everybody check the agitator. How do you say your guy's name? It's not the captain's quarters anymore, guy.
No, so I'm L Millionaire. I host the Captain's Quarters show where I covered news, politics, hot topics, mainly Montgomery, mainly Alabama. But with my bro, Jason Isaiah, we are the Agitators, and we have a page on Facebook called the Agitators. So it's a growing platform. We do a mixture of long form conversations, and we do like reaction videos, and so it'll give people a little bit of different ways of watching. But yeah, we're fairly new, and yeah, support us, man. Go to Facebook, type in the Agitators, and hit that like.
Yeah.
Agitators with the Z on the end.
And
There
I
you go.
shared their stuff on my Facebook too, and guys, when this comes out, obviously, I'm gonna promote it and stuff too, like, man, it's just more of this stuff needs to be out there.
We sincerely thank you.
Absolutely,
Like
man.
El
We
said, we
appreciate you.
yeah, we have
Yeah,
this program, we have our platform. Like El said, we're doing live reactions, interviewing guests. We have this reevaluation thing that we want to do. Just the way history was taught, if it was taught incorrectly, we want to go back and look at things and elaborate on that more. So we have a few segments that's coming our way, coming through. So again, Joe, we just want
awesome,
to
man.
thank you. Love your
Appreciate it.
platform. Love what you're doing. Middle ground, Mike. That's awesome. And wish you nothing but the world and plenty of success to you and your
Same
journey.
for you guys, man. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate. I hope everybody has a good night.
Take care.